Welcome to the Pixels and Papers channel for another round of board game reviews. This week we're going to be talking about a little game that you may or may not have heard of, a show connected to it. We're going to be talking about Rick and Morty, the card game, Total Rickall. Yeah, see, it's got the whole Where's Waldo thing gag from the episode of the same name. Now I'm going to go ahead and give full disclosure here. Total Rickall is one of my favorite episodes of Rick and Morty, hands down, period, no competition. I would actually make a strong, I can actually make a strong case for it being my absolute favorite, period. This game I discovered, and I was flipping through, Amazon and, looking around, and I was like, oh wow, I was like, I didn't realize there were any Rick and Morty games. I mean, I don't know how I didn't figure this out, but apparently it's a thing. I'll go ahead and tell you right now, because let's go ahead and give a little disclaimer here. We're going to do something a little bit different. Usually I've been going through my review and maybe giving you a full breakdown of the game and how it plays and everything. But I think we're going to actually let that go in favor of having a shorter video, which I think might actually work better, be easier to edit. We'll see how it works, we'll see if it gets any mileage. Game plan is to keep these like maybe no more than 10 to 15 minutes as opposed to the typical 30 that I have been doing. So what I'm going to do is just give you some facets of the gameplay and we'll kind of hit those points I like to touch on as we are going through the game. This is a game meant for 2 up to 5 players. This game is theoretically a cooperative game, but the way the rules may come across, it may have you think that this game is not cooperative, but it's cooperative in a weird way. I mean, they're very clear about this. Let's go ahead and just jump right into it. I got this game for a song. It was very cheap. This is very reasonable price point, so that's already kind of a plus feather in the cap to the Rickster. While we're sitting here talking about it, I also want to talk about the components of the game. The components of the game are nice. You have a ton of different types of cards that are all things that stem directly from the show. And literally, one of my favorite scenes from this episode is where Rick confronts Sleepy Jerry, or Sleepy Gary, rather. Also want to say I really like the character cards. The character cards really add a nice flavor. I think it's really cool that, you got a card for my personal favorite, Mr. Poopy Butthole. And they also found ways to sneak in characters like Hammer Eye, Manicorn, who's kind of a weird one who was off to the side, doesn't really get any screen time, Uncle Steve, and of course, Sleepy Gary. I also was quite pleased that Mrs. Refrigerator showed up, even though it was like a one-off joke, but I mean, yeah, it was pretty awesome. I thought it was pretty cool. The gameplay is pretty straightforward. The rules are very simple. It's not really a whole lot to keep up with. I like the fact that the book is literally that thick. I mean, it's like I said, you can see here, I mean, it's paper thin. I mean, you could cut bread with this. But I like the fact that the rules are kept light. It's not a very, dogged affair trying to figure out these rules. The one and only thing about this game that is convoluted is how it is played, just in the sense that there are a couple of key rules you need to know right from the jump and make sure that you don't commit one of these acts. You basically count out an identity deck. These cards have to consist of 18 Parasite and 6 real cards. And the main thing is you want to take a number of these identity cards and place them face down on the table with a number, I think it's equal to twice the number of players actively playing. And basically what you're going to do from there is take a character card and place it face up on each of these individual identity cards. And basically what this does is creates an identity that is secret to the players. You have to determine this before the shooting goes off. And, Morty's mom ends up, killing Mr. Poopy Butthole by mistake. Or not killing, but maiming. The player who's the most recent to kill a parasite always goes first, and we deal out 3 action cards to each player. Now, one thing you want to make sure you're doing anytime that you add a character card to the table, make sure you're replacing an identity card with that character, as I described just a minute ago. And I mean, and the way this is going to work is you're basically going to be drawing an action card out of your hand, placing it face down at the start of every round, and keeping it secret what your action is from the other. I mean, you don't really have to keep the action secret, but I mean, you're going to be basically putting this card down and then drawing another card to replace it. You do want to make sure that you're helping out your team, the other players playing with you, by figuring out which of these cards, or which of these character cards rather, are parasites. It is going to get a little weird because you're also not only going to want to make sure that you know who is a parasite, you want to make sure you remember who is a parasite. Because this is kind of also a game of memory. Once you get everything sussed out and get your card and everything placed face down and you draw another card, you are then going to reveal these cards. And basically your hand is going to dictate what actions you are allowed to take each turn. The first player is going to go first, and then after that, everything goes in a clockwise order. Once all players have played their action cards, the round is pretty much over. Now, at the end of the round, each player discards the action card that is placed in front of them. And then the first player passes their token on to the player on the left. And then you're going to place the top card of the identity deck face down into one of the 3 rows of identity cards. Now, you're not going to be creating any new rows. You only do this if it is absolutely positively necessary. Now, you're going to keep adding character cards as rounds progress, but if you run out of cards, that means that this is the final round, and this is where it's going to get down to the nut cut. Now, to be fair, there's a clarification. It is not the round that you add the last card from the character deck. It is literally at the moment that it's the round following that. That is the final round. You may have noticed as I was showing you these cards that each of them has a different color to it. Now, you want to be careful with that because the color isn't really as important as you may be thinking. It just means that as you are, making actions with these cards, you can't use a blue action card to take out a red character card. You have to make sure that you match these cards, the colors of them up, but otherwise it's not really as important as the game may make it out to be. But you do want to make sure blue goes with blue, red goes with red, so that way if you have a red action card, you're not taking out a green character. So here's where it gets a little weird. The game is cooperative, but in some weird ways, it can be kind of counterintuitive. Because at the end of the day, you are trying to play a game of memory. Now, you can't just out and out tell other players what cards to play or what to pick. The game doesn't want you to just outright tell people what to do. They want you to try to dance around it. So like if you peek at a card, they want you to be kind of vague but not vague. And this is one of those parts of the game where it's going to come up to interpretation. It kind of reminds me of another game I kind of learned how to play recently, Codenames, in that respect, that a lot of this game can fall on interpretation when you read that part of the rules. But that's one of those things I feel like you could take it or leave it. I don't know. I thought it was weird. Also, on another sidebar, this game does have an advanced mode where you can technically have a player or one or more players play as parasite players. And that part gets a little weird, the rules around it. I'm not going to go into it, but this is where the game actually, when I was talking about competitive, this is where the game gets competitive. So that's one of those, I feel like, if you want to kind of throw a monkey in the wrench, you could play the game this way. But I feel like this game would probably, I think it actually works better in the advanced mode where you have a parasite player, but I feel like it might be more fun without that mechanic, but it's optional. It's not something you have to do. It's strictly advanced mode play. Now, when it comes to the shooting phase of the game, one of the first things you'll probably take notice of, once you choose a target to shoot, you are going to flip that character's identity card up, and then based on whether or not that card is real or parasite, determines the next step. If you shoot a parasite, all you have to do is discard both the identity card and the character card. If you shoot a real person, you're going to discard the character card, but you're going to hold on to the identity card and keep it face up. And you're going to put it in the, I guess, what is considered the fail pile. Also, as another penalty, you usually wind up discarding a card because you shot a real person. You also add a new character to the board, and of course, if you shoot a fourth real character, the game is over for everybody. This game is a very interesting one. It's very different. It's kind of unlike anything that I have played in a while, and I do enjoy it. It's a very interesting game. It's hard to describe in any other way. That being said, though, it is kind of a mixed bag for me because while I do enjoy playing this game, I feel like the rules can be, well, the rules are very strict and firm. I feel there are aspects of it that are kind of, whatever. I'd be very curious to know how many people give a damn about the whole, not directly telling people what it is you're doing. Because, in an advanced game mode, yeah, sure. But in just regular old standard play and you're actually working as a group to hit a common goal, I don't see what the big deal is. If you, I can see where you maybe want to keep up some of the mystery that was, maybe in the actual episode of Rick and Morty, which, even then, I think we all knew who was and was not real. It was very obvious. But, I do feel like that's kind of a BS rule. I don't know. I think it's stupid. But, on the whole, the game is great. I think it's very fun. I had a good time with it. It didn't cost an arm and a leg. It's good, cheap fun for everybody. And I think it's very easy to get anybody, to sit down and play. It literally takes, maybe 5 minutes to run through the rules and get everybody on board. You can kind of explain stuff as you go. But, if you played any other card game before, I feel like you'd have a really easy in with Rick and Morty Total Rickall. Thank you so much for checking out this video, and if you enjoyed it, click that subscribe button. Also, let me know what you think in the comments, and click that like button too. Once again, thank you guys for watching, and as always, may your successes be critical, and your failures not so much. See you next time.